drip, drip, drip.
Well, I'm going to let you pour it. So we're not going to pour 4 glasses while we're on air.
Sophie, you comfortable back there?
That's good, girl. I'm glad you didn't kill Donovan Mitchell, man.
Dude, yeah, no, that's
Fucked up, dude.
I was leaving my girlfriend's house at the time, or apartment, and next thing I know, Donovan.
Sure he was.
Yeah, you don't gotta make things up, dude. You don't got a lot to kick it.
From El Toro Studios, brought to you by ElToro.com, the only one-to-one 100% cookie-free IP targeting solution. This is the Straight from the Bull podcast.
Welcome to the 4th episode of the El Toro Podcast. My name is Kramer Caswell, and I'm sitting here as always with David Stadler and DJ Oz. Before we get into the episode, I've had a few people asking me about the music we play at the beginning of each podcast. The music is by Louisville artist Casey Powell. Casey's a good friend of mine who, in my opinion, has one of the best up-and-coming bands in the city. You can find him on Spotify, Twitter, and Instagram at Casey Powell Music. So, this is really embarrassing, but where are my notes here? Cool. So today we are chatting with,
This is so unprofessional.
It's all right, guys. Mark Jurich.
Mark Jurich.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, Mark Jurich.
Great. Yeah, you know.
That name Jurich kind of sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, first we called Lainey Jurich up. And she knows more about current events and today's news than most journalists do. And, I mean, seriously smart. She's way better than Katie Couric. But she had a prior engagement, so she told us to give her girl Jules a call.
Yeah, so then Stadler told me, he said, hey, I need you to call this girl Jules. So I called Jules, super mad that I called her Jules. She said, this is Julianne. And she said, I'm not going to be able to make it. I had a prior engagement, but you need to call my friend Tom. So I call this dude Tom. I said to him, I says, Tommy boy, Tommy, talk to me. I need someone interesting to talk to. Do you have anybody I could talk to? And he said, you need to talk to my boy, Mark. So here we are. We're sitting with Mark Jurich today. What's up, Mark?
Nothing like hitting cleanup, guys. It's glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us, man. In all seriousness, thanks for carving out a little bit of time today. But Mark has very interesting experience in sports marketing. He has overseen the development of over $100 million worth of capital projects in the university space, well beyond that in annual fund contributions. And Mark has recently made the jump into consulting and sports marketing with the Jurich Group. Just a quick blurb about the Jurich Group. Mark and his team have over 2 decades of experience in athletics, working with donors, season ticket holders, and the ins and outs of athletic program, which puts him in a prime position to help advise a lot of these large institutions as to how to steer the ship.
Yeah. Would you say that's right, Mark?
That's a very nice assessment. Thank you for the compliment.
All right, so before we get in too deep, we're going to go ahead and pour the bourbon of the day. Stadler, do you want to talk about this? Because you just got this guy.
Today's bourbon that we will be sipping on is the Boone County 1833. So this is actually one of the products that come out of Indiana. So that's the MGP group, if I'm not mistaken as to their name. This is a 12-year-old bourbon, which you don't really see a lot of those coming out of the market these days with an actual age statement on it. And this is one of my favorite ones that have come out of the last, I'd say, year, 2 years and change. This one, Old Forester 1920. Those are 2 of my go-tos in terms of the last calendar year.
Look at this. Unlike the last podcast, I poured myself a man's pour here.
I am so
growing up.
I'm growing up, man.
Gosh,
growing up.
This is fantastic. So
He's a big boy.
somebody told me that I was tasting the bourbon all wrong. And first things first, I slapped him in the face for questioning me. But then I realized that, maybe there is a little bit of credence to that. So there were a couple of parts that they wanted me to address. First the nose, the initial flavor, and then the finish. And I'm like, man, that's way too much thought into drinking some booze, dude.
Look, I say we just get in and just taste this thing.
Yeah, let's do it. Hit
All
it,
right.
quit it, say
Cheers.
we did it.
Cheers, Mark.
Cheers.
Boom.
Cheers, y'all. Oh, that's a good soundbite.
No coughing this time. Not this week. Okay, I lied. I'm so bad at this.
Don't worry. I remember my first time I had bourbon, too.
Yeah, seriously, man. Seriously.
I mean, when I first smell this, I think of like leather. I think like leather, earthy tones, that kind of stuff.
Man, what does that mean?
I don't know, man. Like it's like I literally smell leather when I smell this. That's the first
does
thing
smell
that
good.
comes to
At
my
least
mind.
you don't taste leather.
Yeah,
They might have a
You'd
problem.
I don't
here.
taste it, but you know
Science
that's
of
what I
bland
smell.
stuff here.
One thing I notice when I taste it, it feels thicker on my palate, and you know I get a little twinge of something sweet, a little bit of butterscotch in there maybe, and then it finishes with a little bit of spice to it. And I guess that's kind of normal coming out of Lawrenceburg. I guess they do a lot of rye up there, so.
Yeah.
This is Dave Stadler approved. For the record, Boone County 1833 does not sponsor the El Toro podcast.
But let me be very clear. It could.
It could.
We're
It could.
open to it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm definitely open. That's interestingly enough. I want to thank our listeners out there. I mean, Kramer mentioned that this is our 4th episode.
All 10 listeners. All 10 of
Yeah,
them.
literally tens of downloads.
We just got 11th.
This is huge. So all you folks out there, I'm going to thank you by name.
Well, let's go ahead and get to the hard questions here, Mark. So first question, how do you get your hair to stay so perfect?
It's beautiful.
You know, it's a lot of work. You can't wake up in the morning and just look like this. So it's it's a lifestyle.
Is it like gel, hair? What is it?
Gel, hairspray, and a little bit of everything.
All of the above.
All the above.
I saw a picture. Let me show you the picture, just so you can kind of react to this. Where
Is it the one on jurichgroup.com?
No, it's this one I found on Google Images. Your hair's a little wild here. I mean, what was
We'll
going on?
make sure
that
not
day?
to post that.
That was a press conference that we were doing on the expansion, and the wind happened to be blowing about 60 miles an hour. So, although it looks like this most of the times,
If it's windy,
not every
count
time I
the hair
can.
out.
Yeah.
I thought it
Gotcha.
was a helmet at first, to be totally honest.
Awesome. Well, so Mark, I met you, let's see, back in February for the first time. You came into the office right after leaving the university. Tell me a little bit about, one, your history just in general with sports, and then two, kind of that transition from leaving the university to where you are now.
Sure. I've grown up in sports. Most of you all know my dad's been an athletic director for over 35 years and was fortunate enough to see it, to live it, to be a part of it, and then in college to be a student athlete. I got to experience it firsthand, all these, great opportunities that are provided by universities. Mm-hmm. And always wanted to be an athletic director. That was just kind of ingrained in me. I've always wanted to do it. I idolized my dad, loved what he did, and I think it was even further reinforced when I was a student athlete because we did have so many wonderful opportunities and great experiences. But then once I got out and I got into development, I knew that was my calling. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to, A, fundraise, B, being able to meet people, and to hear what the university meant to so many people. Mm-hmm. And to share my experience as a student athlete, to get them to believe in our vision. For 20 years, the University of Louisville, we had a great trajectory. We did a lot of things that I don't think many people ever expected us to, and that's a tribute to our fans and the way that they believed in the vision. And so to be out there with them and to hear that love and that passion on why they're coming, how they're coming, the stories of growing up, coming to games with their grandfather, now they're bringing their kids, was just fascinating. But then I had this unique opportunity, being able to come over here and to see how innovative you guys are with El Toro and the tech that you guys were able to create was fascinating. Mm-hmm. And where I was starting to go, I was like starting to think, because you looked across the athletic spectrum as a whole, you really had three overarching themes from an external standpoint. You had declining attendance at home games, people buying tickets and not coming, or people just not buying tickets anymore, which is a real problem. And then retention, right? Each institution you're faced with a retention issue. People keeping them there, keeping them engaged, making them feel good about what they're doing. From a season ticket holder and donor standpoint. And then also it's being able to identify new people and new donors, new season ticket holders.
So what was it when you first came in? Because you went back and talked with some of the guys in the R&D room, and they were showing you some really cool stuff. And what was it about seeing? What did they show you that really sparked your interest to think maybe I should get into this sports marketing digital space?
Yeah, so Dan asked me to come over and just said, we had coffee. And he said, hey, I'd love to tell you what we're doing, show you more. Obviously, at Louisville, we'd worked with you guys in a certain capacity. And he said, I want to show you what we're doing. I think it's going to blow your mind. They came over and they showed me one of the models that we were building using Venue Replay. And I mean, my jaw dropped to the floor. I immediately started thinking about.
Well, what did you see when they were showing?
It showed us the golf model, an early iteration of the golf model.
So what is that? So when you say golf model, because a lot of people listening are going to know.
Yeah.
What
it was is a model that we built for golf courses. So we leveraged the venue replay tool, and we started to frame out all the different golf courses across the country. And at this point, I think we had done the South. I think we had about 700 or so golf courses that were already framed. And then what we're able to ascertain is to start to see and capture the device IDs, matching it back to a home address and then the IP address. So you're starting to see who's playing, where they're playing, how often they're playing, right? So you're starting to see your intenders, right? The ones that are interested in golf, that are engaged with golf. And more importantly, you can start to see and understand their behaviors, how often they're playing, their frequency. Mm-hmm. And so as I saw that, it was like, oh my God, you could use this in development. You could use this in ticketing. You could use this in marketing, branding, etc. You could just
wheels started spinning.
It started to turn. And coming in for the first couple of weeks, I was a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
Being able to sit and listen, because I didn't even know what questions to ask, to start, and learn these capabilities and how vast it is, and to realize that this is cutting edge. Nobody's doing it, and we're the only company that can. And I want to start. I went back to those 3 pillars, right? Declining attendance, the retention rate, identification of new. Well, if I can actually see who's coming to these venues, then you can start to build that out. So now I can identify your high-risk account holders, people that are only coming to a few games, and ultimately being able to identify new people that we didn't know that were coming, right? So I looked at it from a space of where I was in my old seat, where looking at our ticketing solution, it would just say Mark Jurich's ticket scanned X amount of games.
Yeah.
Well, now I can actually see how many times Mark Jurich came. And then from there, start to assess.
From the venue
replay. Then I can start to see, okay, here, then assess. Then I only came twice maybe. So knowing that information and having the experience that I had in development and ticketing, well, that's a high-risk account holder. Let's get in front of that individual. Or more importantly, like you said, to identify new ones, well, if we're starting to see people on multiple occasions that are coming that aren't ticket holders, those are people we need to engage.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah.
It's been a blast. I mean, these last 4 months has been so much fun.
So you mentioned something that I thought sounded pretty cool. And I like it when any kind of issue or problem can get kind of summed up into, a nice, neat package. And you mentioned your 3 pillars there. Could you say that one more time?
Yeah, the 3 pillars that we've seen, and it's not even just collegiate athletics, it's professional. Mm-hmm. It's declining attendance at home games, retention of season ticket holders and donors, and ultimately the identification of new donors and season ticket holders. Nice.
So do you think that that's kind of one of the biggest problems or one of the biggest challenges facing athletic departments today? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's twofold, at least from the external space, is you're constantly in an arms race, whether it's facilities, keeping up with the Joneses. Northwestern just built a $250, $300 million indoor facility, so the next school is going to build one bigger, right? So it's just, again, the keeping up with the Joneses is so important from a recruiting standpoint. So you have to make that investment. So not only engaging your donors and cultivating them properly, that's one thing, but you got to identify new ones, because you cannot continue to go back to the well. You're going to have people that are going to support you no matter what. Their level of giving may be different each time. They may have started higher and incrementally, lowered their support, but they're going to continue to give. But it's incumbent upon us as departments and institutions to go out and find new people, new prospects. And, that's something that we saw was here being able to do that. And I think for 20 years, our staff did a great job of building good relationships with people, that we were able to keep the current donors happy and excited about the vision and where we're going, but also, too, did a great job stewarding those relationships, that they would introduce us to their friends, right? Certainly. So the word of mouth aspect. Certainly. So traditionally, when athletic departments would go out there and they
My bad. 22 guys, I'm young still.
Take 2, edit that out. But so traditionally, before technology like this existed, how are directors of athletic departments really keeping butts in seats? What were your main tools being utilized to, I guess, maintain your exposure to these donors, maintain your exposure to these season ticket holders, and sort of grow that relationship?
It's a lot. It's a lot of hard work to be engaged. I think from our standpoint, it was trying to have as many touch points as possible, whether they're phone calls, emails, text messages, something. My philosophy was always simple. I didn't want, every time that your phone rang, I didn't want it to be me asking for money or my staff to be asking for money. I wanted to actually build close personal relationships. The hard thing with it is, staffs aren't able to have as many people as you want to be able to have the breadth to be able to reach an entire fan base. And so you had to do your very best to try and prioritize donors and lists through people, and leveraging your word of mouth and referrals.
Makes sense.
And I think, the biggest thing is people want to have a vision that they can believe in, that they can support, right? If I'm going to come to you and ask you for money, your hard-earned money, there's 1,000 worthwhile charities you can support. Why are you choosing to give to Louisville? And people believed in the vision that my dad said that our department had, and they wanted to support it. They knew that we were going to be great stewards of their money. We invested it wisely. All I got to do is drive up and down 4th Street.
Yeah.
Every single facility is brand new. It's
Yeah.
So those were all kind of a combination, right? You have to have good facilities, you have to hire good coaches, you got to win, and you also got to have a great vision. And we were able to do that. And my team at the time was able to go out and have as many touch points as possible.
Right on. Yeah,
Get
I can
people
attest to
engaged.
that. I remember being at basketball games, and there's Mark walking. Middle of the game sometimes. You're walking up and down some of the aisles, just kind of greeting people along the way. I always thought that was kind of nice.
Yeah,
You
interestingly
knew our
enough.
names, looking at us in the stands. There's, an arena full of 22,000 people. Hey, Stadler, what's up? Yeah.
And that's one of the things. I think it's always funny because people are like, oh my God, you got to see so many games. We were at a lot of games, but we were working during those points.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't get to sit and enjoy it. My favorite games would probably be on the road because I can actually sit and enjoy it, watch a game, and see the whole thing versus it being just
As he holds his glass of bourbon, not wanting to
Listen,
say
I don't want to insult the host. I gotta partake.
So when you talked on this, coming back to when you first came to El Toro and you started seeing all these models and seeing these people who play golf and the frequency of how they're playing golf, you started to come up with the idea of the Jurich Group. From that point, how do you now utilize this technology to go back and do what you did when you were at places like U of L and some of these colleges?
Yeah.
How do you use this technology to help other universities now?
Sure. I think the first thing is you're talking about building out the Jurich Group. I've always been in the mindset you win with people and you hire great people. We've got a great team with certainly with my wife being a part of our group and as well as Julianne Waldron. Collectively the three of us sat down, put our brains together, and that's how we really created this business model on what we wanted to do. And I think the breadth of experience that we're able to bring is kind of reflective in what we have to offer. To answer your question after that was, okay, after we knew the problems, right? We knew the key overarching problems across the space. So what you can do is, with the venue replay, you've got the ability to look back over 6 months. And now you're able to start to build out and understand the consumer journey, right? Their behaviors, how often are you coming? And then being in the chair wearing my development hat for a minute, you could start to see trends and understand, okay, if I saw you at these games, are you a season ticket holder? Are you a value buyer? Where are you kind of in that pipeline? And so now we're able to create strategies based on the information that we were able to pull from, the venues that we frame.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, because I sit here every day and see all this venue replay stuff. But when you actually start thinking, oh, you could utilize it in this space, and now you're utilizing it in college athletics and not just college but professional.
Yeah,
That's
we're
really
kind of
cool.
we're kind of jaded by the ever presence of the tech in our world right now.
It's nice to take a step back. It was a breath of fresh air when Mark walked in. I got to see something different. I was like, yeah, we could do it in sports. That's cool. I didn't think about that.
You could, and what was fun for us and our team, I could sing our praises about Lainey and Julianne. It's just sitting there, and we were kids in a candy store. You mean we can do this? Well, how about this? Yeah, and then I think what's been a lot of fun in addition to that is having the opportunity to learn from other campaigns that have been run in different industries. Oh yeah, no, we can do this, we can do that, and we've been refreshed by coming in, and this is such a great culture here, and you get to see these individuals coming into work and being able to work with people like yourselves that bring a whole fresh look to an old problem, right? For so long we've looked at it, analyzed it from one direction, but come in and hearing, hey, well, have you looked at it from this angle? It's like, God, actually, no, we didn't. And being able to really get the best of everything, get the best of El Toro, the tech, plus our intellectual capital, I think we've built the finest solution out there.
Yeah.
I'd say so. And I mean, it's definitely a two-way street. I mean, we had some experience when, you first started coming into the office here, where we had in our previous lives, helped, different institutions sell a lot of tickets, from, college athletics to professional athletics to concert venues and things of that nature. And our focus was very limited. It was limited to, tickets,
Sure.
ticket holders, tickets. Yeah. And I mean, that's really all we really focused on. So, we look at these venues and we say, okay, well, let's, try to sell the excess tickets that exist to some of the people that live nearby. So, we look at some dorms sometimes and we say, okay, well, a couple of hours leading up to that specific event, let's target all of the dorms and see if we can get more students in the seats to give that type of, that vibe that you really want at a game. But when you guys came in, you introduced us to so many other opportunities and mechanisms through which we could leverage this technology to expand some of that business. And I just thought that was a really interesting experience for us, collaborating with you all and being like, you gotta be kidding. Okay, that makes total sense. That's actually logical. Yeah.
And the unique thing is this isn't just only a ticketing solution. There's so many opportunities within marketing, development, sponsorship, multimedia rights. Again, because what we're doing is identifying the intenders, the fans, right? So you start at the venue. Well, because that's where people are either raising their hand, directly identifying themselves to you by purchasing tickets, or indirectly by coming with a friend or buying on the secondary market. These people are telling you that, hey, I'm a fan of your program. Come talk to me. The worst thing in the world, and it's inevitable, it's probably happened to every development officer, is when you're in a campaign and you get a gift and the person finally says, hey, I knew if you wanted my money bad enough, you come and ask. Well, now we can help you funnel down your list to go after those people, right? Because you want that touch point. They're not going to readily available and say, hey, I'm going to give you X.
Of course.
No, they want to feel good about what you're doing. They want to be courted. Now we can help you funnel down those lists. I mean, the Cardinal Athletic Fund, when I was there, my team, we had 8,500 active members, so anybody that gave $100 or more. Our staff of 7, we had good, meaningful relationships with, probably 2,000. Good, where you can pick up the phone, call, they're going to answer, and but what about the other 6,500? We didn't. It was just okay at that point. It was, you try to be smart, you try to be diligent, you look at some, try and look at some consumer behaviors, but again, you're limited by the data because the data was only scan rates, and it doesn't help you. Well, now we can actually funnel those lists down using, that same technology, the GeoFraming technology, and you start to frame out other wealth indicators. Something, okay, maybe are you flying privately? Are you staying at 4- and 5-star hotels?
Like
Things
Kramer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I can tell you.
Sure, man, I wish.
Then I can find a guy like Kramer, and I can say, hey, you need to go talk to Kramer.
Yeah, he just paid $10,000 to fly to Atlanta. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But at that point, the great thing is you shrink a list from 6,500 down to 600, 700 qualified prospects to go and talk to. You make your development team, your marketing team, your sales team so much more efficient when you know who to approach versus just doing a random buckshot.
For sure.
So, Mark, it's been noted that you mentioned that attendance is down, retention is down. Hate to get negative, but like the cable ratings, they're a bit down overall as well. So we've noted the problem. How can digital and the Jurich Group improve that situation?
I think first of all, from my standpoint, it's one is being able to identify the intenders who are coming to the games, right? Because a lot of times, if I don't know you're coming, I can't engage you as a fan. I can't sell that vision. I can't sell it to you and get you to believe in what we're trying to offer, right? So I want to be able to get in front of you. So that's the first, is being able to identify and get in front of the folks that we don't know yet. Right? Mm-hmm. And then more importantly, staying with the people that we've identified that could possibly be a high-risk account holder, meaning the fact that they may drop their tickets. Want to keep you there, keep you engaged and believe in what we're doing. And then I think, the third piece is going into it, being able to talk directly to the consumer, being able to, directly target them on their mobile devices, their cell phones, etc., to remind them, hey, big game tonight. White out, red out, black out, whatever it may be, to be able to do that so it keeps it front of mind. A lot of times you'd be surprised, when we would do a few case studies, you would see, and people just, hey, I forgot, you just get caught up in work, and I forgot there was a game tonight. We really saw it a lot. You see it a lot in basketball, especially when you have in those early months in November and December when it feels like you've got a home game. every other day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you think about it for people in the
Just
workforce.
keeping it like top of
I'm
mind.
guilty.
Keeping it top of mind. So when you're there, you know, serving an ad in the morning saying, "Hey, don't forget big game today," or "Can't make the game, give your tickets away." You know, click here, give your tickets away.
Yeah,
So that way it keeps helps keep the stadium full.
I can definitely see that because sports marketing goes hand in hand with experiential marketing. And so if you can pack the seats, like Stadler said, I mean, that vibe just increases. If you can coordinate colors, I mean, if you've been to a blackout or a whiteout game, it's ridiculous.
There's such an atmosphere that exists around those events.
Yeah.
So we were reading an article. It came out in the Washington Post, and you know we've been kind of talking about a lot of the attendance declines that folks are seeing in NFL events, and NCAA football was the one that kind of struck me as an oddity. And this Washington Post article actually noted specifically a 3% decline in attendance in 2017 versus 2016 for NCAA football games. And they cited a lot of the folks that decline was associated with was millennials. And I was shocked when I saw that because, you know, when I was in college, I mean, our lives revolved around, or at least our weekends in the fall, they revolved around
Well, that's
football.
interesting because I can speak a little bit about that because I know, because I would fall into the category of millennials. A lot of times, our friends, we would just go to the tailgates and then we would dip out afterwards, and we actually wouldn't go to the games. Now, if we had tickets or somebody had given us tickets, we would go. But that is interesting. Do you have thoughts about why that is for millennials?
Yeah, I think part of it too is I think there's so many different ways to consume a game now.
Yeah.
You know, with all these huge TV contracts with ESPN and these conferences, you can watch a game from anywhere. You know, and so do I really want to go to a stadium and be there for 4 hours? Or, you know what, heck, I can take my phone and go hike and watch the game. You know, I can do other activities while having this there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That you don't need to have it. You know, and that was a big concern of ours when, you know, as we met as development directors in the ACC was how do we engage this next group of millennials? Because they're not coming. You know, one of the things, you know, we touched upon was experiential marketing. Well, we wanted to draw on those experiences, right? Being able to say, hey, do you remember what it was like when we won, you know, we won the national championship, or we went to this bowl game? You remember that feeling?
That was a good
Well,
feeling.
now,
I remember those days.
which were good. They were great feelings. But you know what? A lot of times now, some of these kids, they don't want to go to that, right? So in 10 to 15 years, you're not going to be able to draw on that experience. Does it mean to say that they're any less proud of those accomplishments? No. But they weren't there. They didn't live it. And they can't reflect and draw on it and say, man, that was awesome. I want to be able to make sure I keep buying these great tickets, and I want to bring my kids.
Remember when we saw that on TV? Oh, it was great. It's a great experience.
And that's a problem. But that's real. I just think there's so many ways to consume games that if you're interested, you may not go.
I mean, it's interesting you bring that up. It was 2013 when we won the national championship, and mark my words, Dave Stadler said it right now. We won the
Banner up.
2013
Oh, yeah, we did.
national championship.
I don't care if anybody. I don't care.
Those
what.
boys
Drink
earned
up.
it.
That's right.
So I happened to be in San Francisco at the time at a conference, and I was losing my mind in the middle of this bar where nobody had any interest in what was going on. I rolled outside. I flipped a Prius. I lit that thing on fire. It was the best night of my life.
Fool UAK fan.
Right after the
Burn
night, I
a
got
couch.
married. But
that was actually the first time I went down to campus to celebrate. I was a junior in high school.
Oh my God, I was so jealous of everybody.
This was
My
awesome.
wife was
Yeah, it
able
was
to go down
cool.
to campus that
was
night
cool.
and party with all the kids out there.
That's
And
when I first found Mount Fuji. I was like,
Those
this place
kiddos.
is good.
Gosh, man, it was awesome. But you know, I think about that, and I think about like kind of reliving that moment in my mind's eye. And you know, if you could capture that emotion and it, at the very least display it to somebody that makes them harken back to that moment, or allows their children to kind of realize they call us fanatics for a reason. That triggers whatever that primal response is. I mean, that's huge, and it doesn't take any time at all for that to happen. But you just have to trigger that moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is because I love going to games. If I have tickets, I'll go. But I don't really go out of my way to buy tickets.
You'd be surprised at how many people, won't go to a game because, you've got Wi-Fi connectivity issues, right? And so a lot of today's society is posting updates, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever.
Put it on a
right?
snap, dude.
You're not being able, Snapchat,
Wait, are you serious?
whatever. Not being able to have that.
You're kidding. That's a real thing. That's a
Yeah.
real reason.
It's a reason because people.
This is coming from Kramer. Kramer's surprised here.
yeah.
I mean, this guy.
That's crazy.
Kramer's on
I actually
social
didn't
media
know that.
24/7.
I am. I use it a lot, but when I go to a game, I'm not trying to. I mean, I'll try and post a snap story. Hey, y'all, I'm here.
Kramer.
But I didn't. That's not a reason for me not.
Tell
to
me how the
game.
Twitters work, Kramer.
Well, let me tell you. I know
Cats
a
and
lot about
tubes.
it.
Cats and tubes.
Cats and tubes. It's all cats and tubes. That's the whole internet, actually. You heard it here.
Well,
That's funny, huh?
I know we've taken a lot of your time, Mark. You're a busy guy. Before we wrap up here, need your hot take on Lamar Jackson in the NFL.
Superstar. He's going to be a superstar. And as good of a player he is, he's a better person. And the Baltimore Ravens, I can promise you, are going to be very glad they drafted him. He's an unbelievable leader. He makes everybody better around him. And he makes people and he makes his teammates believe. And that's something you can't fake. You can't make it. You can't do that, right? He's got that innate ability where he's able to just make the people around him better. They believe in him. They want him. And he's a diehard competitor. And so he's gonna outwork anybody on that team. And he will be a superstar once it's all said and done.
I love it.
What about
Love it.
Donovan Mitchell? Funny story. I almost hit Donovan Mitchell with my car one time.
Dude, you
It was
asshole.
It was late at night. I was leaving U Point. Donovan Mitchell was crossing the road. I was driving. He just runs across the road. I was like, how bad would it have been if I hit Donovan Mitchell with my car? I'd be that guy. I'd
There'd
be
be
like
a
Steve
contract out on
Bartman.
you.
You would have had to move
I would
away
be
from the city.
Steve It was. I was like, that was Donovan Mitchell. He's like, sorry, man. I was like, no, I am sorry. Oh man, yeah.
That's awesome. No, I think there's a lot of Jazz and Cardinal fans that would not be too happy with you right now.
Yeah, I would have to go in hiding for sure.
Exactly.
But hey, Donovan, we're good, man. We're good. I hope you hear this. Probably never hear this, but I almost hit you, and I'm very sorry.
Yeah, man, that's not cool at all. Donovan Mitchell signed my son's jersey after a game one time. Literally, like Beth and I are standing there at the end of the game. Donovan's getting ready to walk into the locker room, and we're like, "Hey, Donovan, can you sign my kid's jersey?" I mean, DT is literally, 9 months old at the time, and we hand him this baby. Or actually, I think we handed it to somebody else. Here's the Sharpie, Donovan. Sign my
Sign
baby.
the kid. Sign the kid.
I've got a photo of this event actually, but yeah, Donovan Mitchell, he's a real class act, man.
Yeah, he's cool.
That's what you see, and I think that's part of the thing that I love the most is still I'm a believer in the enterprise. I love it because I was a student athlete, and to hear these stories, that's what I loved about my job is to hear and understand it because that's why you love Louisville. That's why you're always going to be a Donovan Mitchell fan.
Straight
a
up.
Lamar Jackson. I mean, spending time with our kids and these fans. That's such a monumental game changer, and you love it when you hear the good stories. And unfortunately, I wish those stories were more prevalent than what is being shared because they happen a hell of a lot more often than what's being shared.
Very true.
Well, that's awesome. I think we're gonna wrap it up here and everything. So, there's the picture.
This is this isn't the one where he was actually signing it, but this is DT smiling after they actually signed his
such a
jersey.
cute kid. I
Man,
love
we've got
DT.
it. We've got it mounted in the in his nursery, and I mean it's not a nursery anymore. He's 2.5 years old.
He's a grown man.
But he's basically a grown man. He needs to
going
get
off
a
to
job.
college
Is
next
what
year.
he needs to do. Pay some rent. Jeez.
What's your 401k?
But
look
we've got like
DT?
that from that season. We've because you mentioned basketball's tough to attend. Especially if you've got a kid or if you work and all that kind of stuff. But that year we got all of the tickets with the players' picture on each one of them, signed by each of the players. We got the jersey signed, and then we've mounted it in a frame. That hangs up in his room. It's awesome.
But that's something you'll never forget.
Nah, man.
That's something you'll never forget. That story, you'll never forget it. That's what's great about sports, right? You said fanatic. That's what it is. We're fanatics. We love it. And it's great when, a university and their student athletes are able to reciprocate that feeling back to the, back to the fans that have given up so much to come, whether it's time, money, anything. They are sacrificing to come to these games.
Well, dude, good looking out on spending some time with us today. Thank you.
This was fun. Thank you.
much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for
No,
being here.
absolutely.
We will be back next Friday Not Mark Jurich this time, but somebody else. We don't have a guest yet.
I mean,
we're still
Laney was
dabbling.
busy next week again.
Laney was
It's going to be a
busy.
step down, regardless.
We'll figure it out. All right, we will be here with the 5th episode of the El Toro Podcast next Friday. We will see you then.
You've been listening to the Straight from the Bull podcast from El Toro Studios, brought to you by eltoro.com, where we target people, not pixels.